good afternoon, bookworms and flyleaves. Welcome here to this Friday's episode of Author Reads on Fae Productions. I am your host, Fairy Princess Lolly, and today I'm here with author Abigail Wilds. But before we jump into it with Abigail, I want to, of course, get our first obligatory things out of the way. So since today it is all about the tea, today we're going to like, subscribe, and we're going to steep the bell. Steep the bell. Yes. So my tea is really hot and it has to cool off before I even put that straw into my mouth. That's right. I drink my tea with a straw. I don't want to hear about any of it from any of you. Hi, Jay. How are you? Thank you for tuning in. And then also I want to give a shout out to today's show sponsor, which is which is the Witch's Circle. I almost put an extra word in there. The Witch's Circle Shop, pardon me. And the Witch's Circle Shop, they are based in Ontario, Canada, but you can order from them from wherever, so that's okay. And they are helping you with all of your magical needs, doing everything from witchcraft kits to crystals, candles, and custom orders. You may have seen them on this last week's episode of Handmade Home Shopping. If you didn't, you can go back and look at that episode and kind of get an idea of some of their awesome work. They do events as well, like tarot card readings, workshops for crystals, etc. And each product is vegan and cruelty free. They come from a small family business. So check them out on Instagram at The Witch's Circle Shop, all one word. And I should be going there in the ticker. It is also in the low bar on Facebook and YouTube. So you can click the link or get that address before, during, after the show. And they will put weekly store updates and also tarot card pulls and tips and tricks for your craft. So please check them out. They've been really awesome to work with. And with that said, that is the opening things for the show out of the way. And welcome then to Abigail Wilds. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited for today. the little goth fairy, the dark fairy in me is coming out some, right? So, look at your cute brooch. I didn't even notice that until just now.
I got some brooches from my grandma after she passed.
Yes.
And I was like, 3 years ago, I was like, oh, I'll never wear anything like that. And then I pulled them out. I was like, I love these. They're perfect. Like, brooches can dress up any outfit. I wear a ton of black. So like, it's so nice to just have like a little something that spruces it up. And I'm like, okay, now all I want is like, and like, I really like creepy, I want like a spider,
right?
Brooch, things like that. Oh, so interesting.
Well, you're certainly in luck with those because you can get all kinds of those. If you like to shop secondhand, they're everywhere.
Yes.
So, and you can get some cool, funky, chunky ones too. I like the chunky things, so I'm all about big and shiny. So, well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? And also feel free to give me shout outs to, if you have a publisher or conventions that you like or whatever. Give a shout out to your people. I don't know, your mom.
Definitely not a shout out to my publisher. They closed during the pandemic and they were not fun to work with at all.
Oh,
it was
quite terrible. Tantalizing gossip. It's perfect for tea time.
But I'm so glad they got the book published in the first place. Like, that was, of course, a huge first step. But definitely, I would, if they were still open, I would never work with them again.
It's a learning experience, right? This is what do we call this? This is a teachable moment.
Yeah, right. So, but so I write and I sew and I craft and I have an Etsy shop where I make these little light up fairy dust bottles, which I have to send you one as a thank you for this, which they're all downstairs. I didn't grab one, which is ridiculous, but
you're being told to spill the tea on your publisher, by the way. Spill the tea.
If I ever met them in person, I just might. Oopsie.
I know. They're you in your next book, they're gonna be one of those characters.
Right? Oh, I didn't even think about that. Cautionary tales. Mm-hmm.
Right? Their building burns down or something.
terrible mismanagement. It was so sad. Like, I really wanted, at first I really loved them. I was really grateful, but they were very, very difficult. Mostly just, I felt like every question I had, I'd ask one question and it would take either months. They wouldn't get back to me for months, or like I'd ask several questions and only one of those questions would ever be answered. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm really shooting around in the dark. Like, can you help me out, please?
Maybe they were too. It's actually kind of fascinating to, I mean, like away from the gossipy tidbits, but it's actually kind of fascinating because most of the authors that come on here give good shout outs to their publishers, and one of the things we often touch on. It's one of the things we often touch on though for authors that are new authors or trying to break into the scene or whatever, are things they can do, tips and tricks. And so even though it might not have been the best experience, what you did experience kind of really truly does pose some possible learning points for me, things to avoid or red flags to look for when doing that, you know, when trying to break the ground and get forth in that. So I actually find it to be on a little more of a serious note as opposed to, you know, a little gothic catty note, right? Like right.
And what I would say is if you're a poet like myself, or you write short stories, or if you write novels and you're trying to break in, my best advice is to start getting published in small, like anthologies and magazines and things like that.
And why do you advise this?
Small presses are always open to doing anthologies and things like that, and they'll have calls for poetry, short stories, things like that. Once you have several things published, then you start going to small presses and saying, you know, this is who I am, this is the work I'm looking to get published, and here are the places that I have been published. And it separates you, it makes you a bit more professional, and people say, oh, okay, well, the publishing industry has already, you know, been with this person a little bit. They have a little bit under their belt. So that would be the number one thing. Like, if you're trying to break in, which is such a hard thing to do when you write, or with art or anything, just try to get those little bits in first, because then you start building up that street cred, basically.
Now, yeah, no, that actually makes really good sense, the way that you have put that. I'm curious, with your publisher that you worked with them for this book, what was it that initially attracted you to this publisher that maybe you found out was not necessarily what it, you know, was cracked up to be? That in retrospect you might go, oh, this is why I chose this, but that was not a good criteria for choosing a publisher.
Well, and unfortunately with this publisher, they were a credible publisher, small press, but still, they've been for 10, 15 years. And then just before I submitted with them, they were taken out, like the main CEO left, and the people, his like head editors, they took over the business.
Oh boy.
And I think that's where things went wrong. And then with COVID hitting, I think the editors, they were just like, nope, that's not what we thought it would be. So
yeah, that is definitely a thing sometimes, and it's really hard for, you know, a council to run a business, as it were. So that could also have been a thing if there were just different people with different visions and of how to do the stuff, and no one place where the buck stops to be the the final decision maker. So, well, that's an interesting
being an author and being an editor to running a full business, and then to your business model collapsing because like the business has run a certain way for 10 years and suddenly it can't do that anymore because all of a sudden every single bookstore in the world closed. It throws a lot in there. I'm not sad that they closed, or I am sad for them that they closed because of COVID. I'm not upset about that. I'm upset that I just never got the support that I expected.
Right.
They just would not respond.
That is weird to me. I don't know.
In the dark. And like I would call bookstores to have Tea with Death put in bookstores, which I got great responses about, but they would ask questions and I was like, I don't know. So then I would go and ask my publisher the question and I never got a response. And I was like, you're leaving me out here in the wind. Like,
right.
What am I supposed to do?
That would be very frustrating, especially when you're getting the responses, from bookstores and whatnot. Well, so I'm curious also, since last week was the first time that we have ever had a writer, I almost said artist, but a wrher on the show that has written any poetry. And again, yeah, I didn't know. She has a poetry embedded in some of her novels, which are kind of collections of shorter stories with some poetry. But cool. What you're going to be reading for us today is poetry, just poetry.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I'm curious if you could elaborate maybe a little bit on. It seems like poetry must be very hard to write. I guess I am not a poetic. I'm not a poetic.
Two very different things.
I mean, if you count Dr. Seuss as something like poetry, I am all over it, right? But anything, along the lines of, Edgar Allan Poe or I keep wanting to say the Bard. Who am I thinking of? Not Yeats. Good looking guy. Lord Byron.
Oh, Lord Byron. Oh.
Yes. But things like along that, I just are way outside of my, and I like to write.
Understandably.
How do you think it's different writing poetry than writing a novel?
I think it's very different. I personally am like, I'm not ready to write novels. I have ideas, stories that I want to tell. And for me, it's a time thing. And also I think a confidence thing. As I grow as a writer, I do want to write, actual novels someday. But it's a lot. It's a big thing. It's a big undertaking. And, it's hard. It's hard to sell. It's not hard to write necessarily. If you're for it. Well, no, it is hard to write, actually. It's hard to write well.
Yeah. And anybody can put something on a napkin. Exactly.
And I think that's a big stigma in poetry as well. Because people, angry, angsty teens always write poetry, right? That's not the same poetry that we're talking about here. Like,
graffiti counts. No, I'm kidding.
I think there's and my poetry is it mixes like Shel Silverstein, that very like rhyming, lighthearted, kind of just really fun.
Oh yeah, Shel Silverstein.
Except with dark themes.
Right.
So it's like Shel Silverstein and Edgar Allan Poe had a baby, and that was me.
So kind of like Tim Burton, really. If you've ever read any of Tim Burton's poetic writings, The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy, or who's the other one I'm thinking? Angus Oblong. Do you know who Angus Oblong is?
Mm-mm.
Nope. Okay. The Tale of Creepy Susie and 13 Others. You should just.
Oh, I will have to look that up.
Angus Oblong is a little more like short stories. The Tim Burton one is definitely more like little poems, but both of them they're up there. Who's the Gashly Crumb Tinies,
Edward Gorey.
Yes, up there with that sort of feel.
Yes, Edward Gorey is like my actual inspiration.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome.
I love it. And I want to have several small books in between the bigger poetry collections. I want to have several small books similar to his, like just little like shoot off stories like that.
Well, so tell us a little bit then today about what we're going to be hearing.
Okay, so I'm going to read a couple things from Tea with Death.
I like the cover.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It is.
So I knew that before I even like formulated hey, I'm actually going to make a book and yada, yada, I knew that if I ever did something like this, it would have to be illustrated.
Okay.
It brings so much into it. Like, if you like art, there's art. If you like poetry, there's poetry. And there's both together, and it just is fabulous. So I'll be reading a few poems and showing you the beautiful artwork that goes along with it.
Nice.
My artist is absolutely amazing. She goes to SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Oh, so you're in Georgia or near Georgia?
Yeah, I'm in Savannah.
All right.
And it's beautiful. I love it here. But she's actually in grad school now. I'm so thrilled for her. She's
good for her. Art is a hard thing to make a living at, so definitely props to her for that. And so what type of poetry? I mean, can you describe for us a little bit about the thing that is it one big long poetic story? Is it little poems with themes?
More like that. So it'll be like little. I think the longest poem I have is called Escape from Fear. And it's a really good one, but it's probably, let's see if I can find it real quick. It's a couple pages across the way, but I try never to make things too long. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, like, we barely have the patience these days to get through all of our memes. Like, you don't want to be sitting there and reading this whole long thing where you kind of get lost and like you have to dig into every line. My poetry is not like that at all. You can read it, like, you could probably read the entire book in half an hour if you wanted. If you just sat down and read the whole thing. Yeah. So here's Escape from Fear, and it's like,
oh, I like how it looks.
Oh, yes. And those. So yeah, it like covers 4 pages, and that's the longest poem. And it is a story. It's about a man who's on a boat. Actually, we can just read it. Let's just read it. Why not?
All right. Well, let me right before we jump into that, just for everybody listening at home, we're gonna Abigail's gonna start reading from Tea with Death for us, and you all, as you hear things, if you have questions and comments that you would like to put into the comment section, please do. Sir. And when she is all done, we will take the questions and comments after she's done reading. We'll take those live. And then, of course, at the end of the show, we have our drawing like always. But with all of that said, then I will turn the screen over to you. I'm going to be here in the background on
you can see my kids' stuff.
Oh, no. Children? Who has children? No, I will put myself on mute, but I will be in the comment section with the audience. So here you go. It's all you.
Oh, and so I just read until I'm like, hey, I'm done.
Yes. Yes, if you want to take a pause for a second for a time check, just say something, because I'm sitting right here. I'm just not on the screen. So
perfect.
Okay.
Don't love that you can see my mess. I was so excited that like the screen was little. Oh well. Okay. So here's the gorgeous drawings. And this one's called Escape from Fear. He sailed a boat whose name was Fear upon a sea of doom, the shore of which was never near, no compass and no moon. Fear would rock him sweet to sleep, the waves would lap and lull, till in his secret dreams to keep his quietude was full. Then fear would creak and crack so loud, fierce thundering the sound, until poor man in corner cowed, his peace was run aground. Fear would give a little smirk, and fog would fill the sail, heaving ho with sharpest jerk, riding across the gale. The man stood shaking to his bones, tried to grapple with the ropes, but fear sailed headlong to unknown, drowning all his hopes. Lost in time and endless night, his torture was immense. Upon the sea, no speck of light, oh anguish so intense. Trapped inside himself, you see, a despair so crippling, stabbing pain with no reprieve, a past still lingering. As fear grew stronger every day, the man clawed at his flesh. Going mad in dark dismay, old wounds were torn afresh. When all at once he'd had enough, he sought to loose the chain, sick of sailing a sea so rough, with fear his greatest bane. So through the black he climbed the mast, a knife held in his teeth. He looked out o'er the doom so vast, removed dagger from the sheath. At last the man cut every line, fluttered down the sail, and slicing pieces took his time, his plan he would not fail. He searched the ship from bow to stern, using every part, and though fear tried, could not discern the awaken of his heart. He sewed each patterned piece together with sinew from his thigh. He strapped it on as light as feather, and the man began to fly. He lifted off the deck of fear and up into the dark, where all the clouds began to clear, his heart a growing spark. As he flew on, he stole a glance at all he'd left behind. Now with his freedom he could see how fear had kept him blind. The black sea brought into a blue, the sun shone on his face, as brilliant hope sprung forth anew and filled up all his empty space. And there's the second drawing for it. As I said, that's probably the longest poem in the book. Most of them are a page, a few lines, and it just helps to keep it flowing, keep it lighthearted. What I really worked for in my writing is, if you want to just have fun and you're just looking for a minute of entertainment, it's there, you got it. If you want something deeper, you can definitely read further into it and actually take your time to really delve into all that it actually means. Like in that poem, which is about, escaping fear in our own lives and how we handle that. When he's trying to make his wings to escape the ship, he tears out sinew from his own thigh to tie it together. And so if you really want to start digging into the deeper depths of that, very rarely do we get to escape a painful past without going through it. Like, you don't just one day decide that you're fine. Escaping from fear is a struggle. It's something you have to go through, and pain is something you have to go through to get out the other side. So definitely gets deeper if you want to get deeper. Here is the picture for the next one I'm going to read. I hope that it's clear. Let's see. Boop.
It sort of looks like a crooked dollhouse.
So cute.
Like when you look at the backside of a dollhouse where you can see all the rooms.
All right, this one's called Witch House, if you hadn't figured that out on your own. Witch House. Don't go into the living room. It's raining in there now. And the library will read your mind. Please don't ask me how. Walk into the sunroom to heal your every ail. Careful not to harm the cats. Their curses never fail. The bathroom mirror will tell your future if you look upon it dark, and that hearth fire lights itself with just a single spark. Never you mind that chandelier, it's just a flickering fit, and please be wary of the spirits wherever you choose to sit. Out in the yard, you'll find no escape. Out there are the ghouls that start to take shape. The teacups are harmless, they just fly about. They may pause a moment if you give them a shout. Oh, best not go down in the basement, my dear. The beastie down there will feed on your fear. That spiraling staircase takes you up and away, and no one will see you till the seventh day. The pool is black as night, but it shows you the truth it can and it might. Those creaky floorboards hide secret spells. Guard yourself well, or the secret swells. Climb on up the 13th stair. You'll find 13 is everywhere. That demon cannot bother you. That ancient portrait is his tomb. Herbs hang drying overhead. Consume that herb and you'll be dead. Oh, enter the witch house if you dare. Enter the witch house, but be aware. I always like that one. That was just...
That one is really fun.
Exactly. I like this one that's in the same vein.
Man, I love this art.
Isn't it fabulous? Oh my goodness.
Right? It does. It really brings to life what we're about to hear. I agree.
And this one is it's called New House. Sure, your new house is cool, but it's not walking around on chicken legs cool. And that's, the Baba Yaga, right?
I definitely do. I would assume that most people watching probably have heard of Baba Yaga.
I assume so too. And I wanted a nod to Baba Yaga, but there's so much that's been written about her and stuff, or well, her, the archetype, because it's not an actual her,
right.
It's the whole, what we would call witch, right? Basically. So, but I love this just like little tiny little nod. Like if you looked at the picture and you heard the poem, you'd be like, oh. And I like that. It's like sharing a little secret with only people who are like in the know. So that always, I just love that. It made me so, I don't know. I'm a dork. All in all, I'm just a dork. Let's read a sad one. Let's find it. Okay, this one's called The Blackbirds Ghost. They're in this room with ceiling high. I don't know if you guys can hear my kids. Can you hear my kids?
Vaguely.
Just 1 second. Guys, I'll be out soon, okay? Go ask Daddy to put on a cartoon. I'm so sorry.
No, you are not the first person to have kids at home and COVID and things, so not alone.
Oh my goodness. I don't imagine how people have been like in board meetings and stuff.
Yeah, that would be a thing.
Right? My goodness. All right, The Blackbirds Ghost. They're in this room with ceiling high, ghostly flutter above where I lie. Small foul soul caught in between this world here and the world unseen. Flitting round from arch to beam, chirping out a little scream. A child's hands so long ago removed each feather, beak, and toe. Boredom made the child callous, a curiosity with unborn malice. But death was cruel to tiny beast, the torture long before life decreased. So now it flies above my bed, knows not how to be quite dead. Fallen feathers round the room, I replace each one a mended plume. Healing up each little pain till creature is made whole again. Open the window and release, may little soul now rest in peace.
Oh, that one is sad.
That pretty little feather. So pretty.
I have to say, I admire your use of some of the words that I'm hearing in here. So
some of the rhymes, or
well, yes, but there are simple rhymes. There are simple rhymes, and there are complex rhymes. And at least in my opinion, I know I kind of like have brought myself back in, but I guess that I kind of think often Dr. Seuss is like simple rhymes, cat, bat, hat, fox, socks, clocks, walks, things like that. But then you have complex rhymes where the words start being a 2-syllable or a 3-syllable word where it ends on the rhyme, or where I don't know how to describe what I want to say, at least not in proper, proper poetic terms. But when the break in a word is more than a 1-syllable word, where the break in the word would be the part that is the rhyming part, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Or the rhyme goes in the middle. I think the first one that you read, there was kind of a 2-part rhyme. It was sort of every other line rhymed with every other rhyme.
Yeah.
So first and third and second and fourth. And I guess that I like the words. I feel like you're using some complicated or antiquated words, and I'm like, oh, I'm liking that. So
I really wanted, like Edward Gorey, you can't really place the timing on it in his books. Like you think it's like, oh, Victorian, but then he'll use some modern things, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, well maybe that's not what I thought it was. Or like in his drawings, he'll use like Victorian dress mixed with like 1920s dress, and you're like, I can't really place this. And I wanted to honestly be the same way. So I love those antiquated rhymes, the old fashioned words. I love all that stuff. And Yeah. And I wanted to pull that in, but also have things that were, current and modern. I have one poem where she talks about freezing to death from her air conditioner. Obviously that's not a Victorian, so it's just fun, and it really just mixes it up. I don't want people to be able to jump in and stay in this Victorian mindset the whole time. I want it to be in and out, up and down, back and forth, and just whatever fits at that moment.
Yeah, I'm just over here thinking, I love the dictionary word of the day for exactly that reason. I learn words that I never would have known exist,
Right?
Because nobody uses them anymore. But then, yeah, chuck them into something, and then you sound like super, like you have a huge vocabulary. I learned this trick from a friend a long, long ago when I was on my studying on my student away mission there in the human realm. I had a friend who said, I just pick one word a week that nobody will know the definition of, and then I just drop it into sentences when I'm talking at random, and everybody thinks I'm so smart. I'll never forget that. I was like, wow, that's super clever.
Right? It's like, wow.
But yeah, so I will let you get back to your reading, because we had this cool comment from one of our Heavy Wall, who apparently just joined our channel. Thank you, welcome to the channel as a member, Heavy Wall. They said something really cool, which was when they were listening to you reading, they kind of hear lyrics as opposed to like imagining your stuff set to music, and that made me think of, do you know who the musician Voltaire is?
Oh my God, I love Voltaire. They're hilarious. Oh my God.
Yeah. So
Voltaire.
yes, and I was like, oh, that's kind of what that makes me think of, especially when you were reading the one about the cool witch house. I was like, oh, I can imagine Voltaire doing some music about that. So
oh my God, if they ever were like, hey, we picked up a copy of Tea with Death and we love this poem, we want to turn it into a song, I'd be like, oh, I can die now.
All right, well,
the most amazing thing.
So Ashley, I'm gonna just call you out on a little bit here. You like the word I can't even say it. Apoplectic. Apoplectic. I'm trying to say that word, but those double P's there. What does that word mean, Ashley? That is what I want to know. And I will let you get back to writing or reading here. So putting myself on.
Okay. I'm gonna read this one. Who Poisoned the Tea? And in my head, it has an accent, and when I was writing it, it had this, like I envisioned
just do the accent
character.
Do it. Just do the accent.
Well, I kind of can't help it, but then I get all shy about it. So anyway, so we'll just, okay. Someone poisoned the tea. Who poisoned the tea? Was it you? Was it me? You see that man there? He fell out of his chair. He was poisoned. I know it. Did you know he's a poet? Oh, goodness me, I think I might swoon. And look at the time, it is only past noon. Stop chatting at me. Are you blind? Can't you see that somebody here has poisoned our tea? You pinched me, you cad. Oh, I'm going quite mad. Don't drink from that cup. This is no time to sup. Please stop all this babble. Let's sift through this rabble. Look, there are the droppers. Someone ring the coppers. You, sir, you there. Are you the fiend? This whole little drama is rather obscene. There goes Mrs. Frollo. Well, she was quite a trollop. I must balance my humors. Will you stop spreading rumors? Are you eating the cake? Oh, for all heaven's sake. Goodness, my vision went blurry, and my words a bit slurry. I'd rather. It's hot. What did you say? It's not? Well, oh dear me. Oh, I do so believe that somebody somewhere has poisoned my tea. Oh, then she faints. But look at those teacups. Oh, so cute.
I love it.
Yeah. So
sorry, go ahead.
It's a lot of like super fun and also kind of dark. Not like sometimes I read some of my friends in like our little community and I'm like, oh, no, my stuff is really like light, apparently. It doesn't get like it's fun. It's fun. I wanted to write a book that was fun.
That one made me think of, I keep wanting to, Christie, Agatha Christie. And also, is it Mrs. Maple from Murder, She Wrote?
Right on down.
Okay, it is 2:45 almost. Why don't we do either 2 more short ones or 1 more medium length one, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
Oh, cool. All right, let's do My Heart at Sea. This is the first in the book. And it was always such a, like, so dear to me. And I always knew for sure it was going to be the first poem in the book. Like, there was no question about that ever. My heart at sea. My heart went out upon the sea. Oh, why have you abandoned me? It once was strong and full and bright, but then one day was gone the light. And in its place a sadness dwelled, a sudden darkness left unquelled. Thus the whole that was my heart caught a ship and did depart, upon shimmering waves away from shore, to return to me thus nevermore. All of me floats upon the blue, for all of me was held in you. So that's one of my favorites. I always love that one. Did I lose you?
No, you did not lose me. I'm sorry. I just clicked off the screen for a second, and then I was like, oh no, where did my tab go? Okay, well, we have a lot of questions out there, actually. So let me get to that. Yes, that place where we can do the askings with the things and find our questions. I'm going to have to scroll back a bit. And I had one, but also I'm going to let mine go last. I don't know if you turn into a pumpkin at 3 o'clock. Sometimes we go over a little bit. If you're not okay with that, I'll...
For me.
Oh.
There goes. But it's fine. My kids they'll survive.
Okay. A few extra minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. So... have you ever considered a multimedia approach to poetry? It seems like a neat way to take in poetry, like the way some people might use audiobooks during a commute.
Multimedia, so I feel like that can kind of mean a lot of things. Do you mean like multimedia art or doing an audiobook? Well,
this question is from Newt, and Newt, if you heard her return question, feel free to answer, and we can narrow that down. But I guess my first instinct is to say multimedia like an audiobook, but with poetry.
I would love to do an audiobook. I would love it. If somebody would offer me that opportunity, I would jump on it instantly. And kind of what I would like to do is I'd like to do an audiobook where I just read all the poems, and then do like a secondary thing where I read the poem again and then kind of like get into a little bit and like say where I got the inspiration or a funny story of like something that happened while I was writing that poem or whatever, just to like kind of again be like, come in on my little secrets. Like,
yeah, sort of like when musicians will put the little notes in the sides of their lyrics or right? The behind the scenes.
My husband doesn't like the idea. He's like, no, you need to leave the mystery. And I'm like, I think it sounds fun.
So I guess though, okay, he kind of has a point, except for it's not as if somebody has to read it. So if they like the mystery existing, they can just gloss over that part, right?
Yes,
I personally don't like the mystery. I like to know the things.
I think there's just a special thing. And I do that a little bit. In the back of the book, there's if you can find it, I don't think a lot of people do find it, but there's this little thing about like, hey, come play our Instagram game. And if
you have an Instagram game?
We have like a treasure hunt. And if you do the like hashtag that's in the back of the book, and you post a picture of the book with a teacup, your favorite coffee cup or teacup, I will send you a riddle. If you can solve the riddle and you follow the instructions, then I will send you to your email a personal reading of your favorite poem with the inspiration behind it, and like my own little.
And the way to get the initial hashtag is to buy your book and see it in the back of the book. Yes, that is amazing. I want to do this.
Like, it helps advertising. Like,
that is so cool. Oh my gosh, I feel like we should trade. We have fun little Instagram like things. We should like trade games. That's what we should do.
Ooh, that'd be
right? It actually totally. We should talk about that after the show. Okay, let me see here. He said most likely an audiobook. Oops, although a video accompaniment might be cool. Okay, so let me scroll back up here.
I always wanted to do like music video kind of type stuff, especially with that one that I read, Who Poisoned the Tea. Like, I always envisioned this whole scene. And I would love to do that, but it is a lot to pull that together.
Well, so there's audiobooks
are so little, I'll have more time.
Well, there's audiobooks, and then there's kind of, audio theater where, like the way that Dark Shadows first started, where you hear all of the things, you hear the sound effects and the whatever. So like hearing the clinking tea sounds, and that might be
absolutely interested in any of that. Like, if anybody, I love collaborating. That's, why I wouldn't just do the art myself. I'm okay. But I want to work with people, and I want to work with different artists. Like, each one of my books, all of the poetry, Tea with Death, the next one is Let's Eat Cake. And then the third one will be Find My Grave. And hopefully they'll all be illustrated by the same artist. But everything else I do, I want to pull in different artists. I want to work with different people.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody wants to, like, hey, I would love to do a theater performance of this poem. Hell yes, I am down.
You're in. I love it. I love how versatile and willing to go outside and just take on all new forms. Okay, so like I feel like I could just keep talking forever. Let's see, Jay, I saw you had a question. Here we go. How did you decide which poems make the cut for the book? And also, do you pick the individual art for each poem?
Okay. I have a really hard time tossing out poems. I had a mentor who was like, once a month, throw out one of your poems. Don't ever publish it. And I was like, what? That's a lot of work. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, it keeps you humble and yada yada. And I'm like, if I could write every day, didn't have children and I had the time and space and money to sit down every day and just write, I could get that. Like, I could understand where he was coming from. But I was like, I don't have that time. Every single one of the poems that I do write, like, I have a million books full of like one-liners and half-finished poems that like don't ever quite get there.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much if I write a poem and it's a good poem and it like fits with what I'm trying to say, I pretty much keep it. The only time I have actually kicked out a completely finished, completely edited, good poem has been because it was too personal and could trigger other people.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a few things, like I want to reach people in a way that says, hey, I've been through the darkness. I see you. I hear you. Like, you can survive this. You can make it through whatever's going on with you in your life. You can make it. And I want to reach people in dark places and help bring them through those dark places. But I don't want things that are incredibly triggering. So we don't talk about cutting. We don't talk about suicide. We don't talk about, in this case, it was sexual assault. And the poem was very, very important to me. It was something I never thought that I could write. It was part of my healing process. but that's exactly what it was. It was for me. And in my book, I really want to write poetry for the purpose of entertainment and selling and like getting it out there. I don't actually write my poetry for me necessarily. I write it to be fun for, hopefully for you.
for your audience, right?
Yeah, that's the intention. I write poetry with the intention of my audience in mind. And so I have thrown out poems that, or well, not thrown out, just not put in the book.
Not put into book.
I have them, and they mean a lot to me. But
Although,
when they're a little too personal and they just don't connect with other people.
You know, a thing to do with that though that I've seen artists do, I don't know if I've seen writers, but surely somebody has, but is to do like a Kickstarter where you do like the secret writing of Abigail Wilde, and then you put all your unpublished stuff that was thrown out, and then you do a Kickstarter. That way, you know, people can go and just back the thing, and it's not it's not like you have to go through the whole publishing rigmarole or whatever. You can just get it.
I do have a Patreon. It's called the Secret Tea Society.
Yes, actually, let me real quick, since you just mentioned Patreon. The Heavy Wall is asking, where do we get the book from? And so if you
can get the book almost anywhere.
So Amazon,
Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com. Apparently, I was like, oh, that's crazy. Okay, I mean, yes,
okay,
but okay. But yeah, you can get the book. You can go in. Actually, one of my favorite things is if you go into your favorite bookstore and ask them if they have it, because the more that people request a book from a bookstore, they will start carrying it because people have been asking for it. So even if you buy it on Amazon, go into your library or go into your favorite bookstore and be like, hey, do you have this book? Because it helps artists more than you could ever imagine.
So I've just dropped the link on Amazon into the chat comments for everybody. Do you have your own website other than the Facebook?
No, I don't. I find I have so much trouble just keeping up with my Facebook and my Instagram.
Hey, at least you know, right? What is your Patreon? And I will put that there too.
It's the Secret Tea Society.
The Secret Tea Society, all one word, I assume.
But it might just be Secret Tea Society, I think, actually. No,
okay, I will. Let me just. Let me. /secret. I'm looking for it really quick here. So
it's really fun. We do like tea parties, and we do discuss like we'll get into deeper conversations and I'll share new poems that are coming out in like new books that I only share with during tea parties there. So and
that's because I can't spell. I'm sorry. I'm like, how come it's not coming up? It's because I can't type. That's why. Here it is. I see you. And you've got a bunch of little teacups. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to put that one also into the comments as well for folks. So that
awesome.
And in your ticker, I'll add it here really quick.
It's fun. It's a fun little thing we do.
Well, and I would also just put out there as well to folks on Patreon, because it's not exactly, well, it's sort of hidden on Patreon if you ask me, but on Patreon, you can follow what creators are doing without subscribing. So you can, like, if you scroll down past the individual reward levels, at the very bottom, there will be a follow button, and you can just hit the follow button, and then you will get notifications of the things that they do when they do public stuff, basically.
Oh, cool.
And yes, and so that way you can kind of maybe they don't fall off your radar, or if this isn't the time to subscribe, you could just because you'll get reminders whenever they put something out. Yeah, I actually do that with a number of people, and then when I get to a place, because I love to subscribe to other Patreon people, so and when I get to a place, I'm like, okay, now I will go and add them or whatever. But then in the meantime, they're kept in they're kept in my mind.
They're not lost.
Right, they're not lost. So
sea of internet.
Yes. So let's see. Oh, is that brooch of a mask with a chain?
It's little glasses.
Yes, it's like the librarian glasses from the 50s or something, right?
I love it. I'm like, here, let
see.
me like bring my chest up to the camera.
Haha, this is funny. Stephen King threw out his first work. His wife had to dig it. It's all very the movie Amadeus, right? Where
she dug Carrie out of the trash can, and he didn't want to. He was
wow.
Same with Spider-Man. Lee. Oh my God, what's his name?
I don't know.
The guy who made Spider-Man.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh crap! I forgot his name. Anyway.
You don't mean the guy who started like Marvel? That's in all Stan Lee?
Stan Lee, yes.
Okay.
So Stan Lee was about to quit comics, and his wife was like, well, if you're going to quit, like, just give it your best. Like, just do your last hurrah, whatever it was, like, that you didn't get to do because you were too, like, I might lose my job over this. Just do it. And that's where Spider-Man came from.
The last hurrah.
There's somebody being like, just freaking do it already, okay? Stop whining.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions here from Newt, and I'm trying to pick one of them. Let's go with this one. Do you sit down with the intent of writing a poem with a particular theme, or do they just come to you while you are doing other things?
I write like all the time. I have poem ideas on receipts because I write a lot in the car, like while I'm picking my kid up or something. So I'm like scrambling around the car trying to find something to write on. I have notes on my phone. I have notes on my, I just carry around notebooks. And when something strikes me, I'll write it down. And a lot of the problem is sometimes I'll write something down and then I'll come back to it and I'm like, what? Like, where was I going with this? Like, that's a nice idea, but
yeah,
I don't know what to do with that. So I don't, like I said before, I don't get a lot of time to actually sit down and actually write. Because I still have a toddler. Over this last year, I was like, I am such a homebody. This will be awesome. I will, I'll get all these projects done. Oh no. I ended up homeschooling my kid for a year. I ended up with two kids that I couldn't do anything with. I couldn't take them to a park.
Yes.
And I was like, I have no time for anything. So I planned on Tea with Death came out in February of last year, just before
before COVID. You made it in.
All the conventions we were supposed to go, like that we already had paid for, everything got canceled.
Oh man.
So it was a lot, but no, everything I do is in these little tiny notes, these little, like, scattered all over the place. And then I'll finally come to my computer, put them in, and then have to edit them and edit them and edit them and edit them.
Yeah, editing is an ongoing process, and sometimes one of those things that writers get stuck in, the whole editing process of they never finish, they just keep going back and editing and re-editing and re-editing.
Yes.
So,
and there is a point where you just have to be like, done, send it out. I have to be done, because you really can just fidget with it forever and ever and ever and never move forward.
Oh no.
And, like, if you're an aspiring writer or poet, edit for sure. You need to, like, edit is important. Get help. Get other people to look at it, because once you've looked at something, I mean, there's still words in this book that in my mind are a word from a long time ago that didn't actually work. And I'll still say that word because it's in my own head.
Yes, that makes sense.
So definitely have other people look at it. If you can, hire it done. But editing is super important, but don't get stuck in there.
Yeah, one of the biggest, because I used to do that when I just kind of write for fun, right? Mm-hmm. I have one children's book or whatever, but I don't have any novels or anything like that. But when I do write, I used to get stuck in the editing. And then one day I don't even remember who it was. I just heard an author say, if that is a thing, you can't do that. Finish your book, no matter how terrible it is, because then at least it's done. And then you can go back and edit it as much as you want, but you still have no matter how crappy it is, finish it, get to the end. Otherwise, you will never get to the end. And boy, And so I work really hard now actually to do that when not with just writing. I try to do that with everything, right? Like finish the task that was in front of me, finish the thing, like otherwise you just
practice I have mastered, but a very good practice.
Yeah. So otherwise you just have a bunch of half-completed projects, right? So I definitely am better at it with writing than I am with crafting, where I have 3 bajillion.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, well, this is actually what Ashley said here, horrible at editing, and I'll go blind to the words when I'm on the computer. That's actually something that I think I've heard other authors on the show also say, is that you at least have to have beta readers, because after a while, you become accustomed to reading your own words, and so you will gloss over and you'll just miss very plain mistakes, not because you're terrible at doing it, but because in your head, you know what it was supposed to say. Yep. And so your brain just fills it in, it fixes it. And so having those beta readers is, if nothing else, because I know that sometimes, getting the professional editor is definitely cost prohibitive for some people. So well, it is 3:04, and that means basically it's drawing time for us. I should have said, you guys, now put your names into the comment section right now if you would like to be entered to win a copy of Tea with Death. I almost said Death with Tea, and I'm like,
So, and this one that we're giving away today is actually really special because it is one of the signed by both me and
handwriting.
Oh, thank you. Both me and the illustrator, and we only do 100 of the ones that are signed by both of us, and this one is number 25.
Ooh, fancy.
Special number. I like that one. So.
All right. So I am going to pull up let me see. Newt had one more question. And while I'm pulling up the Wheel of Win and getting all the names on it, I'm going to actually ask his last question. Okay. I think, and that way you can answer it while I'm doing this. And I have to scroll up here a minute. It's back here somewhere. It was before this one. And I have a cat outside. You have children, and I have a cat that is just being insistent on coming in after he was very insistent on going out. So let's see. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Pull this up. Does your poetry follow many different meters and rhyming schemes, or do you have a favorite poetry forms?
I definitely have a favorite form, and it's just the way that kind of goes in my head, and that's just kind of always the thing is I kind of, especially when I get going on something, think in this poetic meter. And so my favorite is like this 4-line stanza, generally where the so poetry goes like A B blah blah blah, right? A B C, whatever. Mine is usually A B C B. Yeah, so the second and fourth line usually rhyme. Sometimes I'll work extra hard and get the first line and third line to rhyme and the second line and fourth line to rhyme. And that's really fun. I really love when that happens. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. But I try to really mix it up and play with all forms of poetry. There are some, what's the current form that isn't actually a form, that isn't like regimented? Oh, free verse, which is the most popular style, right? That's the style now. And I don't do a lot of free verse, but I try to throw a few in there in every single poem, or every single book, sorry. And then I have a whole section of limericks, which are so fun. In the next book, Let's Eat Cake, I have some haikus that turned out, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I'll have some that are like the double line. I try to mix it up as much as possible, just so that it's entertaining and you don't get bored. so that it's fun and engaging to keep reading. That was the hope. And I hope that works out.
I think that it probably works out just quite fine. So I like haikus. I like haikus and limericks. So
I love limericks. Limericks are so fun, and I have
they
some
are
very, very fun, really fun little limericks in there. And I'll have a section in each of the 3 books called
yes.
Little Limericks for a Lark, and it's like 9 or so cute little limericks, but it's fun.
There's something about the sing-songy aspect of lyrics that I like. So
and just about most of my poetry has kind of the sing-songy kind of thing. It's also talking about like bile and murder, and you're like, oh, okay. But it's fun.
You're like, it's all happy, but also, stabby a little bit, right? So.
You're like, oh, it's so cute. Like I could read it to my children. No, I could never read this to my children. Okay.
Okay, so we are getting to the time where I put the names onto the wheel. Just so you guys know, there are 3 possible entries that everybody can have. You can add your name to the comments. That will get you an entry. You can join our YouTube channel by hitting the join button if you're watching from YouTube, and that will automatically get you entered into every single drawing that we do. Even if you're not, you can't make the show or whatever, we will reach out and contact you. And the same thing with our Patreon. For a possible 3rd entry, if you join our Patreon, you will also get entered. And if you're already a member on either or, you get another entry. So for a maximum of 3 per person. And with that said, then I'm going to go ahead and do the wheel. And it matters because the wheel will take, there's more than 50 names here. And the wheel will pick 50 of these randomly. So if you are in there more than once, you increase your chances for certain. And yes, and so with that said, for a copy of Tea and Death, Jen Easel, congratulations, you are the winner today. Oh, I think actually that she will like that immensely. So,
yay!
Yes, it seems like it might be just up her alley. So,
awesome.
one of our Patreon patrons, I don't know, I like to try to get to know my patrons a little bit. So, well, with that said, is there anything that you would like to share or say to us before we let you go this afternoon?
No, just thank you all so much for having me and spending your time to check me out and listen to me blabber on and get all distracted for a while.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Secret Tea Society is a lot of fun. We're currently working on turning a back work shed that came with the house into an outdoor screened-in tea room.
Oh, cool!
I have a Kickstarter for that, and I'll put that link since we are so out of time. I can drop that.
It's okay. If you tell me what it is, I will look it up right now.
So if you go to Kickstarter, it's called From Workshop to Tea Room.
Okay, let me look for it really quick.
Abigail Wilds. That might be easier.
Is it? Let's see. Nope. It says it cannot find a project.
Abigail Wilds. That'd probably be easy. It'd probably make more sense.
What is the name that it's by? Like, who did this project?
By me.
So, let's see. Abigail Wilds. We'll look up that. Oh, wait. There it is. It's a picture of your shed, right?
Yes. Yeah, like a junky. It's a really cute shed, but it's real junky, and it's been there, I have no idea, 20 years or so. And so all the nails are rusted, all the wood is rotting. We're having my husband had to rip out part of the ceiling today, which I'll have updates about that later. Oh my goodness. But we have a couple days left on the Kickstarter if you want to see like behind the scenes. If you really love renovations, this is a very, very fun, really unique kind of renovation thing. So
I like kind of how the front of your shed sort of looks like Wild West, the way that it would look in front of like a Wild West saloon or something. Oops, excuse me. Oh my gosh. I burped.
My daughter was sitting on the couch yesterday and she burped and she said, "Excuse me, it's just my body." I was like, "Oh my God, you're so cute." Like, yes, it was your body. Like, yep.
Now I feel concerned though, because I'm drinking tea and it's all about tea, death, and poisonings. Who poisoned the tea? And I'm over here like, I'm drinking tea and I burped. It's like it wasn't me. All right. Well, thank you so much. And you guys, if you do order the book from Amazon or other online outlets, please remember to give the reviews after you read the books. And then also there's the cool, fun little Instagram game of tag that is in there in the back of the book. So if you want to get what that Instagram hashtag is, then that's where you need to find it. So I know then you can get the poetry and get some other good bonuses, fun bonuses.
And there's ebook too.
There's what?
It's available as an ebook also.
Oh, very good. All right then. You have options in case you like to read and own cats. So ebooks allow you to read in the dark under the covers where the cats cannot walk on you.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And with all of that said, then we will bid you adieu. And goodbye, everybody. Today's Friday. We'll see you here on Sunday for Handmade Home Shopping at 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I hope to see you all then. And bye-bye.
Hello, friends. This is Gunther Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Use your troll hammer to ring that little bell icon to get notifications when she posts future videos. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!